it just occurred to me that I felt better about the world because I'd met all these people who were strangers who'd been in and out of my home, and they were all so kind and lovely and good and generous.
Hello, hosts and travelers. Welcome to the podcast Hosting Your Home. Each week, around the world, millions of guests stay in other people's homes using the Airbnb platform. Debbie Herder looks for stories that come from these connections. Listen in as we hear stories that teach us the human side of hosting your home.
Hi everybody, this is Debbie at Hosting Your Home. Thanks for checking in with us again. Before we get started on today's episode, I want to bring you up to date on what has been happening with Rob and me. Some time ago when we started this program, like about early spring, we discussed how often we wanted to have our episodes air, and we thought we'd be okay with getting one out every week, which we did great with that for a while, and then it was like maybe every 8 days, and then maybe every 10 days, and then summer started, and we started having company, and then more company, and then in September, we went to Lake Tahoe for our 45th anniversary celebration. I got sick, and I was sick for the entire time we were there, so no podcast happened. And now here we are back home after another round of company, and everyone is gone. We're expecting no more company for a while, and hopefully getting back into our groove. So I hope you enjoy this one today. This is with Alex Nigg, N-I-G-G, and Tammy Sims, who are representing their company properly. Mainly, this is about them as a couple and about their Airbnb experiences, both as hosts and guests. But I want to tell you just a little bit about Properly before we get started. And Properly is an app that you download on your smartphone, which consists of a suite of tools that allows homeowners and vacation rental property owners to manage their guest turnovers. So this is basically for the cleaning people. We use this to interface our cleaning needs with our cleaning professionals. And I asked Alex and Tammy to come to Portland to give us a workshop. In our Facebook group, we have now almost 300 members, and we're starting to share our cleaning people and doing cross-referencing and even some cross-cleaning where some hosts will go clean other people's places to get them out of a jam. And this kind of a tool gives consistent information about that cleaning process to everybody who uses it, and it is unique to each specific Airbnb. So they came up here, they spent a couple of days in our Airbnb, they did a workshop for our guest community, which turned out to be really good, and they also were willing to be on the podcast. So I hope you enjoy them. They are just a delightful couple, and we had a great time. So here we go. It's Tammy Sims and Alex
Nigg. It's a Swiss name. It's from Nicholas. So Nigg.
So you have a Swiss name, a German accent, and you're Italian.
It's basically the Swiss part is the goat ran away and crossed the border, and like my family are originally, I think, mountain farmers. So it was literally, I think it was the place where my dad was born is 3 miles line aside from the Swiss border on the Italian side. Oh. So I think it's one of those stories where one day the goat ran away, and that's where the name came from.
Oh, funny. And you host. So I want to tell you about Hosting Your Home, first of all. Hosting Your Home is about the warm fuzzies of people. We want to hear people's hosting stories and their relationship stories and you know the nice, fun, easy side of being an Airbnb host. And I know that you have your app Properly, and we'll talk about that. But today we'd really like to hear from you two and about what it's like for you to be hosts and about, you know, what you can tell us about what your experiences have been. Yeah. So which one of you would like to start? Tammy, you?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I started hosting in Seattle in January of 2014. And I really started, and the more that I talk to hosts and vacation rental owners, the more that I find that I'm not certainly in a minority, even though I thought that I was. But I really started on a whim. I didn't set out intending to be, an Airbnb host or a vacation rental host full time. But I started because there were times that I was away from my home and it was just sitting empty, and I'd heard about Airbnb. And my washer broke, and I could afford it, but I thought, well, I'll just host until I pay for it, so it's not an extra expense. And then it just took off, and it's been a pretty full-time, constant thing since then. And, probably about 40 groups of guests in, I just had this moment on my porch. A guest had left, and we'd spent about 15 minutes talking on my porch, and he's some lovely gentleman. And it just occurred to me that I felt better about the world because I'd met all these people who were strangers who'd been in and out of my home, and they were all so kind and lovely and good and generous, and so I just felt like, wow, if the odds are, I've either gotten really lucky, or it is the case that we've got a world full of really good-hearted people, and so maybe we're not all doomed. Like, maybe there's hope for us as humanity. I really did have that, sort of epiphany on my front porch. So I've continued to host. And
you did you have work that was taking you out of town? Were you traveling?
Part of the time, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what kind of career were you?
I was almost for 20 years, I worked for a nonprofit organization, and we provided services to people with developmental disabilities. Mm-hmm. So I was in human services for a number of years, and I left that work and wasn't sure what I was going to do next. I had started hosting on Airbnb, and so then that just sort of took on a bit of a life of its own.
And that was in 2014. Mm-hmm. And 2014 was the first year of the Airbnb Open.
Yes.
So let's segue Alex into this.
Okay.
Similar story for me, actually. Maybe I started in a little bit more cynical way. I started hosting 3 years ago. And I'm saying cynical because hosting for me started as a bit of a science experiment. And science experiment from the perspective that I was an investor at the time. I worked for a venture capital fund. So I wasn't investing personally, but that was my job. And I was very interested in the Airbnb ecosystem. And there's sort of two things that drove me in the direction of hosting myself. One was that I was interested in the Airbnb ecosystem and wanted to understand it from a host perspective. The second one is I've always had an interest in design. So the design angle for me was I wanted to figure out whether I could design a convertible house. And by convertible house, I mean something that could be converted very quickly from being our space, like our personal space, to something that would host people, like sort of an Airbnb accommodation and back. Sort of to literally sort of be able to go away for the weekend and very quickly turn the house from our own personal family space to great accommodation for strangers. I like the design challenge. Fast forward, it worked beautifully. I got hooked. So when I said I started cynically, like sort of just wanted to explore it from the outside, I got hooked right away. I got hooked mostly because of the comments that guests left. I just didn't expect people, sort of, for me this was more transactional, and I didn't expect sort of the warmth and the love that people brought into this. And also, like, there was some very nice comments, and so I really, really started liking it, and it took off on its own. I then, then it became a sense of pride, and like I wanted to be a great host. I was always a remote host because I only hosted when I wasn't there, but it was amazing to me how I actually started connecting with certain guests. There was one specific story that really got to me, where there was a family from Australia. The husband was American and had worked and lived for many years in Australia, then married an Australian, and he had a very severe form of cancer, cancer of the brain, and his company paid for him to come to San Francisco to try an experimental surgery. I mean, San Francisco, like UCSF, was the only hospital in the world that would do it, and they stayed at our place as a way for him to reunite with his family that had spread all around the world prior to the surgery, to see how things would go. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting for me because I usually didn't connect with. I mean, I connected with guests, but just over email, but never sort of expected that I'd really sort of become part of their life. And in the event, what ended up happening is It was a very complex surgery. He was in a coma for a while. His wife, his kids then left, as his wife ended up staying behind, waiting how things would shake out. We ended up becoming friends with his wife, took her out for dinner, helped her move to another location, as it became clear that her stay was going to be a long-term stay. So it's really very, very different from anything I'd ever expected. But it really hooked me as a host, and I started enjoying the hospitality aspects more and more of it.
That's fascinating. How is he?
He didn't make it.
He did not.
He didn't make it. And I mean, they all knew that sort of. They knew that going into it. That's why they budgeted in such a way that the family was actually going to spend 2 weeks before the surgery. So they could all spend some time together. And the whole family came together from all over the world. It was sort of a very special experience, for them to actually have chosen our house to come together for that very important moment.
I think it's one of the things that catches people off guard when we start hosting. It really is an honor to create a space where people are showing up and crossing the threshold of the space that you're listing for rent. That people are coming for any number of reasons. So whether it's it's part of what I love about creating a space that's really nurturing. That if people are coming because they're in a crisis like that, or if they're coming for a honeymoon, or if they're coming for a vacation or business travel or whatever it is. That when people travel and leave their home, for whatever reason, and land in a different city, I think it's an honor and a big, responsibility to be the person who's literally hosting people. And I think that aspect of being an Airbnb host really catches people off guard in a good way. It's like this lovely surprise that you find out later. I'm always surprised about Airbnb that there isn't another platform that I can think of that brings people together in the way that this does, in such an intimate way, because people are in our homes.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not it's just a room in our home or a separate apartment or a whole home and we're not there, it's still our space.
Do you both remote host now, or do you generally meet your guests?
Primarily, we both remote host because the Seattle house is rented when I'm in San Francisco or when we're in New Zealand or traveling for work, and the San Francisco house is rented when we're gone. So almost primarily, exclusively, we're remote hosting. And
do you use a management company, or do you actually connect with your guests now? Yeah, because I know you're both really busy.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's not. I mean, it's a solution that works for some people, but I wouldn't ever want to outsource that to someone else, because part of hosting for me, even though I don't actually meet people in person, is I still make a connection with guests, and I still like to know, why are you coming? What do you need? How can I help with your stay or with recommendations, that sort of thing. So for me, in that way, it's more than just a business. It's that piece of it that I don't think you would give that up either, would you?
No, I mean, it's different styles work for different people, but we would never give that element up. I mean, we already remote hosts, but we do want to make sure it's our hospitality that shines through, and that's a component that's really important for us. It's not just about the transaction; it's about the hosting part, and so I think that's why we went to great lengths to figure out a way on how we can actually make that happen, even when we're not there.
And we would like to put links to your properties in the show notes.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and then you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house?
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a hot tub in Noe Valley in San Francisco. And then we've got Tammy's place.
And mine's the upper unit of my 1905 cottage. So it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath space with a full kitchen and.
In downtown Seattle?
I'm on North Beacon Hill, actually. So one of the things that I think was helpful about the success of my listing initially, when I didn't have any reviews and hadn't gotten started, was that it's near the light rail station. So guests can land at SeaTac and take light rail all the way to my house. Then it's about 3 blocks, and then they can also get back on light rail and zip right down to downtown, or now they can go to the University District. So I think that was part of the appeal initially, and what helped me gain traction. So it's in a cute little neighborhood.
And both San Francisco and Seattle now have some restrictions with Airbnbs. How has that affected you each?
It's probably most serious in San Francisco, which is where a lot of the legal battle started. So in San Francisco, I'm considered an absent host because I'm not on premise at the same time that the guests are there, and that restricts me to 90 days a year.
Wow.
So I can only host 90 days a year, and we're actually just reaching the 90-day cap right now, so we're done with hosting for the rest of the year. It's been a very tough battle in San Francisco because San Francisco obviously does have a housing shortage, and that has created quite a bit of backlash. There's probably a small percentage of hosts in San Francisco that are on the wrong side of this equation, that are turning long-term rentals into short-term rentals. But the vast majority of San Francisco hosts are doing what we are doing, which is rent their primary residence part of the year. But the backlash has created some of the stricter laws are in the country in San Francisco, and that's what we have to deal with right now.
And in Seattle, they're just starting to look at that issue. So it's city council is considering regulations right now, but nothing, unless I'm behind, nothing has been decided yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So can we have this story of how you met?
Sure. Yeah. So as I said, I just started in January of 2014, and the first Airbnb Open conference was in November of that same year. And when I first found out about it, I knew that I wanted to go. And so as soon as registration opened, I think I waited like an hour or 2 hours and tried to register, and it was already full.
Yes.
So I put myself on a waiting list, and then I got notification that my name came up on the waiting list. And then I got notification that I had gotten Superhost status, and I didn't know that was even such a thing. So that was great. And they had a Superhost reception the night before the Open started. Mm-hmm. And I typically don't like things like that. I'm not a big group person at all. But I reminded myself that I was going to an event with a bunch of other hosts, and those are, kind of my people. And so when I was there, I met Alex.
And I'm not many people believe me. So two things that people don't believe me. Number one, that I'm Italian, and number two, that I'm shy. But actually, I am shy. And this was sort of a very special evening for me, because it was I had just started working on our company, on Properly, and I had a prototype of the app. So I had to overcome my shyness and talk to random strangers and ask them what they thought about the app. And I thought, what better place than the Superhost reception, which is exactly the target demographic. Mm-hmm. And that struck out for a while. I talked to a number of people and got great feedback. And sort of it was later, I was like, okay, now it's time for me to go home. And then there was this one very, very friendly face across the room that I saw. But unfortunately, Tammy at the time was surrounded by Airbnb engineers that wanted the same thing that I wanted, which is product feedback. So I mustered up all of my courage and made my way across the room and elbowed aside the Airbnb engineers, and 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah. Well, congratulations! That's
Thank
so cool. This is a true Airbnb romance, right?
Yes. No, and it didn't start like that, because we just met. We chatted we kept on bumping into each other, chatted throughout the conference. Then didn't see each other for
7 months.
For 7 months. Yeah, didn't see each other or hear from each other for 7 months, and then 7 months later, we were both at a different stage in life, and we randomly reconnected. And of course, we reconnected at an Airbnb, hosted by an Airbnb Superhost, of course, on Orcas Island, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's so cool. So, and then during that time, well, actually, I didn't realize that you had started Properly before you actually had met. And you started that in 2014? Did you start developing that?
Yeah,
so before we start, though, I'm a little confused. You were in San Francisco because you were working with the investment firm?
Yeah.
And you had purchased your house. You were all nicely settled and everything.
Yeah.
How long had you been there?
At my house since...
San Francisco.
Like in San Francisco for, I was 24 years now, so...
Oh, my goodness.
Okay,
time, yeah. Okay. All right.
No, so I was working a day job at the time. I was working for venture capital fund, and the sort of typical situation was I'd be sitting in a pitch meeting with a couple of young and eager entrepreneurs, and right in the middle of the pitch meeting, the phone would go off, and it would be my cleaning professional calling me saying, "Well, I just arrived at your house. This is the first time that I'm here. Tell me what I need to do. And by the way, if you don't, the guests are arriving in 2 hours, so you better tell me right now." Which didn't work so well. So I tried to do all kinds of different things. I came up with a manual with photos of everything, with detailed instructions, but nothing really worked. So then I came up with the idea of like, could I turn all of this into a checklist, make it visual, make it very easy to understand, easy to use, so I can create it once and then not to have to worry about it, but also make the job much easier for the cleaning professional, because it wasn't their choice that they'd be sent to a house that they'd never been before, and sort of I can't expect them to know how to work it. And I started getting more and more interested in the problem sort of as it kept on happening every week. Started talking to other hosts, heard that lots of other hosts faced the same problem, and then started developing the app.
So that must have been in 2013?
No, so this would have been 2000.
Summer of 2014.
It was summer of 2014. Then we had the first prototype ready by Airbnb Open.
So you hosted for a year before you
Yeah.
started. Okay, that was my little disconnect there.
Yeah, basically I'd experienced the problem firsthand for a year, and then I tried to basically develop something that could solve my own problem after I heard from other hosts that were telling me that it wasn't just my problem. Yeah, and then Airbnb Open happened. After Airbnb Open, I got lucky a second time. Actually, just before Airbnb Open, I got lucky a second time in that we met, I met one of the founders of Airbnb, who lives not too far from where our house is, and he started liking the app and using it. And then something funny happened, like one day during a meeting where now I was pitching for investment, I got a series of urgent text messages. Actually, I got a series of calls or text messages, I forgot which one it was. And I just swiped them all away because I was busy and I was talking to an investor. And then 45 minutes after the meeting, I finally thought of it, and it was no other than that Airbnb founder who had a turnover scheduled at his house on that day, and the cleaning professional didn't show up. So in desperation, he called me and said, "Hey, can you loan me one of your cleaners, because I know you have a bunch." And that's where I came up with the second part of the idea. I sort of started developing the second part of the idea, which was, what if we as a community could all share our best cleaning professionals with each other? Because we know that if someone's worked for another great host, then like that's going to be a great reference.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that. And this is so interesting too, because it's nice to know that one of the founders had someone not show up. So if the founders are actually renting their homes as well, they're having the same kind of situations and the same kind of experiences, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he lives fairly close by. He obviously doesn't tell anyone like what his listing is, otherwise he'd be bombarded with people. Yeah. But I know firsthand that he's actually really, really hosting and it's trying every day sort of to figure out what works, what doesn't work, like on his at his own place. And so experiences all the same problems that we have firsthand.
One of the things I like about this is not just the pictures and the ease of being able to share the information, but in our Facebook group, we've started sharing our cleaning people's contacts numbers too. And so this makes it so much easier. It's so nice because you automatically have that trust, that you know somebody who's used this person and they know this style, they know what they're doing. Yeah.
It's sort of an easy word of mouth.
And it's also, I think it's because I try to come to the problem from two sides. One is what we as hosts need, but then the other one is I started realizing that as hosts we're not great customers, we're not great clients for the service professionals that work for us, because our schedule is so fickle. So in residential cleaning you fill up your book with 10, 15 different clients, and you know that you clean their house every Friday from 2 to 5 or every Wednesday from 8 to 10, so you can actually have a normal book of business. Working for an Airbnb host is a lot more complicated, because we may need a cleaning on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the weekend, any day of the week, and it's often short notice and unpredictable. So for the cleaning professionals that work for us, it's much, much harder to build a business around that. So being able, again, sort of to reward the ones that do a great job for us and share them amongst each other, because collectively we have jobs every day of the week, makes
However, the time is pretty standard, from 12 to 4-ish, right? Because if you have the turnarounds.
Yeah, but I actually, because I just have one listing, it's easier for me to be really flexible about check-in and check-out. So I always tell people, if you want to check in early or check out late, ask me. And if it coincides with the other guest on either end of you, I'm happy to accommodate that. So So that means that my turnover sort of happen at random, or can happen at random times.
Okay.
And it's always kind of magically worked out that if the guest wants to come early, the other previous guest is leaving. I don't know, there's some magical formula that's happening.
That's great.
But it means my turnover times are erratic.
And we sort of, at the company level, we've looked into that very closely, and we started realizing that there's different groups of hosts. There's the sort of what we call the pro or semi-pro hosts that'll insist that the checkout actually is at the agreed upon time, and then they'll immediately have cleaning professional turn over the place so it's ready again for the next guest, even if that's a very short-term reservation. Mm-hmm. There is the sort of more casual host. And those really tend to be much more flexible about time. They tend to schedule cleaning first time in the morning. They'll schedule the cleaning at 8 o'clock in the morning because they're not booked the day before, because they're not always booked. So the two groups can actually coexist very happily. And then for the cleaning professional, it's great because they can have a job at 8 o'clock in the morning and a job in the critical 11 to 3 or 12 to 4. Sort of turnover time period. So what we'll do is we'll block out those times for the pros, or the pros will book their cleaning professionals during those times, and then they're blocked. And then for the rest of the day, the sort of more casual hosts can have much greater availability because they can find everyone on the platform. And for the cleaning professionals, basically it makes for a full day of work then, not just a really busy noon to 4 period.
Yes. The other thing that I want to just bring up in the podcast is something that you said in the workshop earlier today about the one person that joined the app, that got on the app, that was the cleaner, and that within 3 weeks she had 30 new jobs. And I think that's something that is really important for other housekeepers, cleaners, service professionals to understand, is that this puts their information out there to a group of people, a pool for them to be able to be selected from.
If they want to be.
Yes, if they want to be. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because my own housekeeper wasn't able to make it today. She had a move-out clean, and she says, I've got to go do this clean because it's a big one, but it's money in my pocket right now, and the season is slowing down. So I would like for her to know, and other people to know, that something like this actually can be very beneficial even in the slow seasons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's part of what I wanted to create at the time, creating a platform that creates opportunity. Because I think we as hosts, we've had a lot of opportunity that was given to us because of the emergence of this phenomenon of home sharing. And if that can put us into a position of sharing that opportunity with someone else, I think that would be a great gift for all of us.
Yes.
Of actually creating a platform that creates opportunity for others. And be that cleaning professionals, be that handyman, be that gardening. Sort of there's so many follow-on effects, like I think, that come out of this very rapidly growing economy that should create opportunity.
And in fact, one of the ladies today wanted to know if she could create something akin to a pet watch program on using your app, because she wants to travel and she doesn't want to leave her cats alone. So that was a great idea.
That's a really good idea.
So,
I mean, anything that's there's actually one area that we want to push into, which is home care. Anything where you have very specific requirements that need to be followed closely, like an app I think it can help quite a bit, because that something was followed in a specific way, and it gives peace of mind to the person on the other end, whether that's an elderly person that you want to be cared for, or whether that's a guest that you want to have taken very good care of. Like it's sort of all the same use case.
Boy, lots of potential.
Yeah.
So can you describe your Properly app for us?
Yeah, so Properly is two things. It's number one, it's a tool, and it's think of it as a housekeeping app for hosts. It allows you to manage your turnovers remotely. It allows you to send detailed checklists. It allows you to establish much better communication with your service professional. And it allows you to sort of follow along as the job's being done. So it's a tool for remote management of your turnovers. The second part of Properly is a marketplace. As a marketplace, it allows the host community to share their resources, their human resources with each other. So for anyone who has a great service professional that helps them with their turnovers, it allows you to share them with everyone else. And then for service professionals, it's a platform to make themselves available to not just the current clients, but to everyone else who's part of the host community. So we basically think of it as a tool that you start with it as a tool, so come for the tool and then stay for the marketplace, where everyone can get resources from the rest of the community.
So, Alice, can you give us a sense of how broadly the product's being used now?
Yeah, we have about well over 4,500 property managers and hosts around the world that have started using the product. They are distributed across more than 50 countries right now, and collectively they've already invited more than 1,500 of the best service providers around the world. So still very early days, but we're very, very happy with how it's growing, and particularly how quickly it's been spreading around the world.
And multiple languages?
We support 8 languages right now. We support English, of course, French, Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, traditional and simplified Chinese, and German and Italian.
Well, that's impressive.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work because, every time we make a tiny change to the app, it has to ripple through 8 different languages. Everything has to be checked. We have to make sure that the strings actually fit into the app, and it's not too long-winded.
Well, it's not too long-winded, but you didn't say the part that sometimes you go into like tech speak.
Okay.
The thing that I love about it as a host is that I can use pictures to show people exactly how I want things done. So it's a visual checklist app. So you get to use pictures from your listing. You get to use pictures that you take of your house. So you can explain how to get into your house, explain where things are, and then you can show people how you want things set up for your guests. So it makes it a really clear set of instructions that can replace the long 3-ring binder or the long email or the long set of instructions for how to turn over your place. You get to show pictures and people can just easily look at those and know.
And because it's on your phone, you can have real-time interaction with the person that's cleaning your home.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Through the app, you can ask for verification photos. So once someone is done, you get to review the pictures and say, looks great, thank you so much. Or, oops, wrong guest card. Can you switch that out and put the right guest card in so you can give feedback as soon as the job is done.
By the way, and that's a really important element to us. Like, lots of people have asked us, so how do the service professionals feel about it? So how do they feel about the fact that they're being watched, that they're taking pictures of what they're doing? And what I found really interesting, it's very rewarding for them, because managing a turnover for an Airbnb host is a very thankless job, because the person that actually sees your work is not the person who's paying for it, but it's the guest. And it's very unlikely that a guest is going to say the place was clean, because they expect the place to be clean. Like, if anything, they're going to say the place wasn't as clean as we'd like it to be. So basically, for the cleaner, it's they have a high chance that something negative is going to be said, and if it was positive, which is 95% of the time, then nothing will be said. By actually taking photos of the place, now the person who's hiring them sees what a great job they can do, and it's a great opportunity for us as hosts to reward them for their work and say, like, wow, this looks amazing. I really, really appreciate the fact that you're putting some extra effort into this and you make it look great. So it really, I think it strengthens the bond between us and the service provider, and it allows us to actually give them appreciation for what they're doing and show them that their work really matters to us.
That also takes out the guessing game. Yeah. So if I were to imagine, doing a turnover for someone else, which I'm listed as a community cleaner in Seattle, so I would potentially do that. But then it takes the guessing game out for me. I get to show up and I know exactly how someone wants it done because, as hosts, we have our own specific kind of hospitality touches that feel personal to us. And so if someone was entrusting me with doing their turnover, I would want to do it exactly how they wanted it done. And being able to just see a picture and get it right would be peace of mind for me too, actually.
And to speak to the issue of the housekeeper not getting positive feedback or getting any feedback, that's one of the reasons why I started copying some of my reviews and sending them.
Absolutely,
and they love it.
Yeah,
they love.
I do the same thing.
Just telling someone your work actually really matters, and I take note of it. Like, because even if the guest leaves a positive review, it wouldn't naturally go to the cleaning professional because they don't read the reviews. We read the reviews, so I think what you're doing is really, really great that you're actually letting them know.
And that that speaks to someone who's taking ownership of who has the same level of expectations for your guest experience as you do.
Yes.
So that's
it's a partnership.
Absolutely,
it is a partnership.
It absolutely is.
Our other cleaning lady, I hate to call her cleaning lady, service professional, will get a glass of wine and she'll sit down on the floor and she'll get all the cards out and she'll put the decks back together again. I'm just going, That is the most amazing thing. This is so
And
great.
She also, when she's all done, she'll sit down and just appreciate
She does.
the house and what it looks like when she's done, which is cool.
Yeah, she appreciates her own work because she loves to see.
Yeah, as she should. I mean, she's, it's one of the things that we always try to talk about when we're talking with hosts is that the person who helps, if someone is helping you with your turnovers, that person is a critical part of not only your business, but they're a critical part of helping create your guest experience. And so, those people are, to be shown great appreciation. And one of the things that I've done with the people who've helped me is that I'll engage them in my hosting experience. And so I'll say, this group of, gals are coming. I had some people who were coming it was 3 women, and they were coming for a 30th birthday celebration for the 3 of them. And so Ian was the person who was doing the turnover before them, and I said, hey, they're coming for, so can you hang a happy birthday banner, and this is what they're coming for, and that kind of thing. And he is the part owner in a cider company. He said, do you think they'd want some cider for their, so it was an experience of like engaging the person who was helping me with my turnover in the whole guest experience. And then they're part of the hosting. So I leave notes for guests, and often it says, welcome to the cottage. Hope you have a great time, Tammy and Ian, so because they know that Ian's the person who got the house ready for them.
That is so cool. We did a podcast, one of our earlier podcasts, with our 2 cleaning ladies at the coast, and to date, it is the most popular podcast.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
So we heard from Alex and a nice warm fuzzy story. Do you have one for us, Tammy?
Let's see. I think one of my favorite stories is early on when I started hosting, I had a group of younger women from Vancouver book my house. And they were coming to have a girls' weekend, and they were all going. My house is close to the stadium area, and they were going to a trapeze class. So they were excited about my location because it was close to this. And they were the sweetest group of young women, like just so engaged, so lovely, so warm. And I hooked one of them up with a bike because she wanted to go biking, and we had some. I actually did those guests I met. My mom was in town, and so my mom and I met them, and then they became repeat guests. So one of the women wrote back. They just had an amazing weekend. They had so much fun, and then one of the guests wrote back, and she was planning a weekend for her mom's birthday. So she had this. She was taking over the house, and then her mom was going to come, and her sisters for a couple days, and then and then her friends were coming, and so they were these guests that kept coming back. One of them actually sort of fell in love with one of the trapeze instructors. And so then she wrote once, and she was coming back, and she was sort of nervous because she was coming to see him. So I was like, we were in touch that weekend, and I helped her find a place to stay because my place was booked. And they've just been really lovely. The rapport. It was back when Airbnb, they didn't block email addresses. So we've had this email exchange and stuff, and those are probably some of my favorite guests.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. Is there anything you want people to know about you?
That's a good question. We're on airplanes a lot.
we fly a lot, and we stay at a lot of Airbnbs.
We
I
do.
think we counted, how many did we do in the last?
Probably 20.
More than
20
that.
or more. Yeah. I think one of the things, one of the reasons that I think Alex and I are so compatible is that we both really love hospitality. And I think that's the whole intention behind, the product that he created, but also, we sort of were drawn to each other because we had similar values, and those values were revealed because of the stories that we told each other about our hosting. And I think that's the thing that I would want. Well, that's what I would want people to know about you, because as the founder of the company, you really care about guest experience, and you care about creating an opportunity for hosts to have an easier time. And
we love hospitality. I think that's really brings us together. We love creating sort of random occasions for people to get together. Like we had one funny thing where we were in the middle of the desert at a festival called Burning Man, where like I've been going for many years. It was Tammy's first time, And for 3 nights in a row, we put on a massive feast and had 30, 40 people over for dinner. Without any planning whatsoever. Actually, the best part was the third night, where the third night we were planning to have a dinner.
We thought we were having, I think, 8 people.
Like there's 6 or 8 of us, and we were planning to cook dinner for the 6 or 8 of us. And then suddenly 25 people showed up, and we had dinner for 25 plus a wedding.
Plus a wedding?
Plus a wedding.
Oh my
People wandered in for a wedding.
The wedding was actually the best part, because there was a couple across the street from us that kept on bickering. So at some point we're having a dinner and they were coming over, and we said, well, if you promise us to, what was it? Like we said that if they promise to stop bickering, we'd marry them. And they said, sure, so we just married them on the spot. So we had an impromptu wedding.
And how do you plan your travels? How do you plan with so much traveling? Mm-hmm. I guess my question is more like, how do you plan your time together? How does that work?
Well, we try to make sure, initially when we started seeing each other, because we lived in different cities, we agreed that we wouldn't go more than 2 weeks without seeing each other. So that was part of like the initial kind of ground rules of this long distance relationship. Now the time is much, certainly much shorter than that. So we just make sure that we don't have too much time. We make sure that not too much time goes by. And it's really hard. I mean, our schedule is really busy, both with travel, but also, a startup company is a full-time, 14-hour-a-day endeavor. And so we make the most of, I think we started doing like morning and evening walks. That's a good time for us to kind of like reconnect and talk about, but we do, I mean, with as much pressure as we have, as a couple, we just we make the most of moments that we have.
And we try to travel together as much as we can. Mm-hmm. So we travel together a lot too.
Yeah. And one of the things that we both love is being in the kitchen. So I think that's one of the things that we don't, we try not to give that up, like in our day-to-day lives and work lives.
And we don't ever compromise. So one of the things we did, sort of, for instance, the jam, like that we just made recently, we didn't have time all day to get to it, so we started making jam at 11 o'clock at night.
Oh my goodness.
We were done at 2 o'clock in the morning, but we're like, we're going to do it, and this is what it is.
Well, thank you very much for the jam.
You can tell. You can let us know. Yeah, you can let us know if you can tell it was made in the middle of the night.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the workshop and addressing all of our community members and doing this podcast with us. It's very nice.
It was
appreciate
fun.
it.
Thank you very much.
We love any
really,
opportunity
really
to get together with hosts, and it was a lively, engaged, active group. So good work pulling them together.
Thank you. Aren't they sweet? We've really had a great time with them, and Rob and I are really enjoying our 2 a.m. jam now too. Thank you, Alex and Tammy, for that. So, people, here is your homework. Go to our website at hostingyourhome.com and click on the link that will take you to the place where you can download the Properly app. Right now, that app is free. So take advantage of it, upload some pictures, kind of play around with it a little bit, get your cleaning people involved, and see how that can work for you. I think that this is just really a wonderful tool to use. And also, while you happen to be on our website, you can subscribe to our podcast. You can also subscribe to our podcast through iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play. And we would also love for you to join our Facebook group. The Facebook group is called Hosting Your Home. Anyway, thanks for being here. We're so happy to be back with you, and we look forward to talking with you again next week. Take care.